Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter, and I'm here today to talk about the Capricorn full moon on July 3rd, 2023 at 4:38 a.m. Pacific time. What I'd like to do is to talk a little bit about the aspects that the full moon will be making to the other planets. And then I'm going to go sign by sign and tell you where this is going to affect, what house this will affect. This will be based on your rising sign. If you don't know your rising sign, you can go to any one of the free birth calculators on the internet. You just need your exact time of birth as well as your location. So for clarity, this video is based on whole sign Western astrology. And let's jump right in. So a full moon is the completion of a cycle. It's where the sun and the moon are 180 degrees apart, and the sun is literally reflecting its light onto the moon, bringing us into a place of completion, bringing us into an energy that is abundant and fertile and transformative. This is where we've planted our seeds in the darkness of the new moon. And as we've walked through the 30 days, 31 days of the cycle, we have garnished varying pieces of information that then bring us into a place of clarity. Now, I think this is really powerful because this particular full moon is in the sign of Capricorn, which rules structure, government, authority. It rules duty and obligation. It rules tenacity and endurance. And it also, Capricorn by nature is not really very emotional. The planet Saturn rules Capricorn, and Saturn asks us to endure beyond our own emotional comfort. Now, the moon is all about emotions. The moon is some interesting things about the moon, because the moon moves the fastest of all the planets that we look at in astrology. It goes around the zodiac once every 30 days. It rules all of our bodies of water. It rules the oceans. It rules the water, the fluids of our body. It rules the part of our emotions that we ourselves are not always conscious of. The physical moon, as it rotates around the earth, only shows us one side of it. The dark side, or the back side of the moon, is never completely seen. It's never seen at all unless you're out in space. And so this is really, to me, this full moon is bringing to light some of the dark side of the moon, or the side of the moon that I don't recognize, the patterned side of me, the patterned side of my emotions, the patterned side of how I react and respond, and what dictates my behavior. The other thing about the moon that I think is super important is that when an astrologer looks into your natal chart to see your soul's contract, they look at the nodes of the moon to get that information. The south node representing a point of familiarity, a point of habitual behaviors, habits, and beliefs that your soul has purported and nurtured throughout lifetime after lifetime. And the north node is representing a point of transformation, a place you want to go, a place you want to experience, but you're not used to. So I think this is very powerful, because here, having a full moon in Capricorn, we are getting a glimpse, if not a full spotlight, put on the emotional structures with which we operate every single day that we may not be consciously aware of. Capricorn is the ultimate architect. Saturn taught and gave man the tools necessary to thrive during the golden age. So I very much think that this full moon is focused on my emotional body and the structure of that body. How was it built? Was it built on doubt and fear and duty? Or was it built on possibilities and support and feeling a sense of connection? Because as we experience this full moon, we are going to get an opportunity to start to plant seeds coming up in the Cancer new moon that will support our emotional body being the true north, the northern star, the rudder for our life experiences. And I think that as we become more aware that we create on an emotional level, and then we go into a doing action, if we can sit back long enough to establish what is that emotion? Is that emotion one of faith? Is that emotion one of doubt? Is that emotion one of excitement? Is it one of dread? Because that is the vibration with which we are starting our manifestation. So this particular full moon is going to illuminate for you, depending upon your rising sign, and that will affect the house, the area, the environment, where you will start to see the imprint, the branding, the behaviors that you have been trained to feel and to think and to accept as law. And as you become aware of them, you may rewrite your own personal laws. Capricorn rules government, authority. It rules, again, duty and obligation, things that we have to do, things that we need to do, things that we should do. And as we move closer and closer into the Aquarian age, we're going to start to set our sights on the things that we want to do, the things that we get to do, the things that we are excited and inspired to do. And in the being able to differentiate that particular emotion will give us a glimpse into the potentials of our material success. So I think it's really important as we go into this full moon to be brave enough and willing enough to not judge those structures, the imprints, the patterns, but rather take them as a piece of information and a point of awareness. I think this is also evidenced, this dynamic of this full moon, because it's at the 11th degree. It's going to be 11 degrees Capricorn will be where the moon is, and we'll have this, the sun at 11 degrees of Cancer conjunct Mercury. So let's start with the moon at 11 degrees Capricorn. It's going to give me an Aquarian flair. Aquarius rules liberation, revolution. It rules genius. It rules large systems like our nervous system, the World Wide Web. The 11th house by nature rules our hopes and our dreams, and it's called an Upachaya house, which rewards over time. Saturn co-rules the 11th house. So here I am layering the idea of the full moon illuminating an emotional imprint, an emotional structure, an emotional authority, whether it is current and actually an authority or something I've been imprinted with. I've been taught it. It's been given to me so many times that it feels like a law, but it may be just a law of my demographic, my age, my experiences. So I think we're going to get a real opportunity to look at this and decipher it more succinctly in relation to, is this emotional law supporting my happiness, or is it tethering me to another dynamic? Because I think what Capricorn here is representing what we are expected to adhere to, what we are expected to support, what others will have us do on their behalf. And if we don't, they will call us selfish. And if we really think a little bit deeper, if I put myself first, am I being selfish, or are you being selfish by asking me to put your agenda first? So I think this is a very important point of awareness. And I think that this full moon is going to give us an opportunity in many ways to make new choices. And those choices feel as if they are very much playing to my soul's imprint and releasing it from anything it's tethered to that doesn't support my happiness. So I'm very excited to see this energy, because the sun at 11 degrees Cancer, the sign that is responsible for the moon, the sign that represents nurturing, represents self-care, represents the imprint of the home and the family, represents, again, our emotional body. So the sun, my personal identity in the house that the moon rules, and now it's conjunct the planet of my thought, Mercury. Mercury's at 14 degrees of Cancer. And so I really believe that this full moon is going to give us a really large look at how we think. And this whole time we may be thinking, this is normal. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm required to do to make money. This is what I'm required to do to be a good citizen, to be a good husband, a good wife, a good son, a good daughter, et cetera, et cetera. And as we look into that, we may realize that we've been operating on somebody else's agenda. And now we're getting to start to write our own agenda. Again, I want to kind of emphasize that if the moon rules our emotional body and the moon moves the most quickly through the zodiac, then the moon is actually the most influential planet on the human experience, because the emotions are zipping around every month, meeting with all our natal planet points and meeting with all the transiting planet points. So if you don't feel good, you're not going to want to run out and create something. You're going to want to identify and clear out what is blocking you or holding you back through fear, doubt, trepidation, or, as I said, expired duty and obligation. So I think this is really important. I also found an interesting fact about the moon. It's slowly drifting away from the Earth. It is moving approximately 3.8 centimeters away from the Earth every year. And I thought that was interesting because if I think about the idea of Capricorn, it very much represents structures that are built from the human earthly material needs and requirements for survival. And the moon does not create that way at all. The moon creates from something that feels inspiring and passionate and fun and makes me feel connected and loved. So as it moves away from the Earth, I don't think this is about disconnection. It's about getting more sight and more clarity from the structures that have been given to me versus the structures that I want to build myself. So I think that this is going to be a powerful energy. And I want to offer this because the conjunction between the sun and the moon, the sun and Mercury in Cancer is really also sort of, whenever the sun is close to a planet, they say it combusts that planet. It eclipses it. It outshines it. So here, I believe that the sun reflecting onto the moon and the moon then reflecting the sun's light back onto the planet of Mercury will make me feel as if I am having an epiphany about my childhood experience, about how I think, about the information that I absorb, that I spend time musing over, watching television, listening to podcasts, etc. And is that information really serving me to move my story forward, or is it tethering me to something that is something that feels a little bit like a superficial piece of information where I haven't dug deeper into a dynamic. So here, and as I mentioned, the sun being conjunct Mercury, this is an opportunity for this a quieting of that mind, a wanting to present myself out into the world in an evolved way, and this illumination of the previous historic traditional structures helps me make that shift with more ease, with more comfort, and with more security. So what we're going to see is not only is the sun conjunct Mercury, we're also seeing the sun making a trine to Saturn. Saturn will be at 7 degrees retrograde in Pisces. Saturn is staying at 7 degrees for the whole month of June. We've been experiencing that. And I think this is very important because the 7th degree is the Libra degree, the degree of balance, the degree of harmony, the degree of cooperation in partnership. And that partnership here feels like the partnership of how I want to project myself out into the world. So Saturn is giving me the encouragement, if I'm willing to continue to be aware of the imprint, the hard work of not judging myself, not criticizing myself, not condemning myself to a historic pattern because I'm too far along in life, or I don't have enough money, or whatever my story of lack may be. Because this is a very favorable aspect for reconciling your history and then implementing new structures. The sun is also making a sextile to Jupiter. And on that day, Jupiter is at 9 degrees in Taurus. The 9th degree is the Sagittarian degree of my belief system, my philosophies, my ideologies. It's the degree of higher education. So here the sun is making this beautiful aspect to Jupiter. And both the sun representing a bright light and Jupiter representing expansion and wealth and opportunity. So as we look at this illumination, this culmination, this piece of information that comes through the inside of me and then makes me want to birth it in the outside world, is something that I can celebrate rather than thinking, I wish I knew this information earlier or sooner. The moon will also obviously be in an opposition to Mercury. So your head and your heart may be having a bit of a challenge, but then we have the moon making a trine to Jupiter. So again, there is this sort of epiphany that might feel a little bit prickly about some of the places where maybe even I've been holding myself back because I've been fearful or I've been worried about how other people would respond to my shifting. And yet now the stars are supporting, if I kind of take that leap of faith and try defying gravity, I may just find my wings and fly. So let's look and see where specifically this is going to be happening for each one of you. For my Aries Rising, and if you're an Aries moon, it won't be the same house, but the moon, again, is my go-to planet for my ability to manifest. So this is going to be in your 10th house. Aries, this full moon is going to illuminate something about your career. It could very much bring the culmination of certain dynamics where you feel that your public image, your career status, how you're being viewed is not really in alignment with what your heart is feeling. And there could potentially be a piece of information that comes through that shifts things for you. It brings things to what we call an end, but that end feels very much as if it is the launching pad for a new beginning. It could be, for some of you, depending upon the rest of your chart, the 10th house rules are public status. So this could be the culmination of you being a single person and the beginning of you being in a marriage or a partnership. It could be the ending of being childless and going into the stage of parenthood. I want to combine the ideas of building and the ideas of agriculture, growing things. The phases of the moon represent fertility. So very much this could be where Aries is feeling more fertile within your life as a result of this transformational information that has come into your awareness. And I really want to emphasize it's not about judgment or criticism or I wish I would have known this sooner, as much as it's about taking this moment and walking forward with more presence in the moment versus stretching too far out into the future. For my Tauruses, this will be in your 9th house. Capricorn is your 9th house, which rules education. It rules higher levels of education, PhDs, masters, courses for certifications and courses that acknowledge expertise. Some of you may find as Tauruses, you've been working towards that energy, meaning you've been building and working, and now you're finally getting to the end of that cycle, the last year of college, the last semester of your master's, etc. I also think that because Jupiter is in your first house, and this is a little bit of a side note, Jupiter is making a positive aspect to the sun. And so this may be a real moment for you to shine in the new phase that's coming up as the full moon kind of closes one chapter and starts another. So if you're graduating college, then you're going to embark upon your career. If you're, you could potentially even, if you could take a trip abroad that broadens your knowledge or your interests in some way, expands your beliefs, and brings more diversity and a sense of, it's interesting to say this for Taurus. Taurus and Capricorn both rule history. So there may be something about your personal history that comes into your awareness that feels as if emotionally you've completed a cycle, even if all the components within that cycle are still active in your life. You may have shifted on the interior, even though the exterior has not shifted at all. For my Geminis, Capricorn is your 8th house. This is the house of other people's money. This is the house that rules a deep sense of our psychology. It rules power, control. It rules things that are hidden underneath. So for my Geminis, this may very much bring about the culmination of a cycle where you recognize that you may be working harder for other people than you do for yourself, or you may be more focused in on the needs of the many versus the needs of the one. And this is an opportunity to realize that if you're not nurturing yourself, if you're not taking care of your own needs, you cannot be as influential or as powerful a contributor to the whole. One of the challenges with the Scorpio energy is being able to allow others to support you. And I know it sounds funny because we say it revolves around other people's money, but when we talk about other people's money, we're talking about inheritances. We're talking about people who move money around like stockbrokers and financial advisors. We're talking about taxes. So we're not talking about money necessarily as a form of income. It's money that seems to come through in some sort of partnership. So if you've been working in a dynamic where you're overly delivering or you're not getting a fair shake, Gemini rules the two things. And so here I kind of want to go with my head and my heart and a bit of a assessment of, are they both being nurtured the way they require nurturing in order to run at optimum speed, at optimum vibration and frequency. And if for some reason you find that your 8th house energy is draining to you, people are depending on you too much, or they're requiring more from you than you are able to give, or you find yourself in a situation where you are interacting with other people and you feel that they have a sense of power and control over you, that may be the end of that cycle. And you may just find yourself wanting to fly the coop, is the way I want to put it. You may find yourself wanting to, I can't help but think your ruling planet at 14 degrees Cancer conjunct the sun in opposition to the moon could make you, when I say fly the coop, I don't mean literally leave, but actually take time to, I know it sounds weird to say this for Gemini, but I almost feel like this full moon may make you want a little alone time so that you can review and to evaluate your own needs and what they are, and if they're being met, and if you're even giving birth or life to the idea that you have needs that need to be met. If for some reason you're overly nurturing other people, taking care of other people, supporting other people, worrying about other people, worrying about something outside of yourself. For my Cancers, this full moon is going to be in your 7th house of partnerships. Then this puts the Sun and Mercury in your 1st house. So I think this is a real important time for my Cancers to allow themselves to differentiate between what they want in the way of structures in their partnerships, how they are viewing themselves in relation to their interactions with others. The 7th house, yes, it rules marriage, but it rules professional contracts. It also rules diplomacy, harmony, cooperation, peace, and beauty, and a sense of connection and togetherness. Those are all Venusian things, as the 7th house is naturally ruled by Libra. So here, I think this full moon is going to bring to your awareness this idea of give and take within your relationships, and starting to put yourself as a priority. And maybe even you are ready to abandon your fears of feeling, that you must perform or you must be dutiful in some way to another person. You must take care of them to the detriment of yourself. I feel like there's a sense of ebb and flow. I think of balance as two things, sort of never static and even, but rather this effortless up and down motion. So here I feel like there's going to be an illumination, a culmination, a completion of a cycle of looking at your partnerships and allowing yourself the privilege of transformation within those partnerships, allowing yourself to be fully fertile in your partnerships, that it is just as much about nurturing yourself as it is about nurturing others. All right, for my Leos, Capricorn is your 6th house of health and of service to others. It also includes our pets, the 6th house, and it includes an energy of feeling a certain amount of enslavement and duty to being of service. Now, this is sort of a double whammy, because we've got the 6th house being of duty, of obligation, enslavement in some ways, and then we have this strong Capricorn energy that is sort of doubling down. And here, I think that this is where my Leos get to sort of play with the idea that Venus is in your 1st house, and looking at your own sense of self, and what you get to do to be of service to others is to play to your heart. Leo rising, your challenge is to be courageous in the heart, to be a leader within the heart. The Leo energy rules all the warm, fuzzy, lovely stuff in the Zodiac: romance and pleasure and games and game night and going to concerts and having fun and being out in the summer and going to the beach and celebration. And here we are in a weekend here in the United States, which is our Independence weekend. It's a very large beach fun holiday. So I say that because moving forward, I think that you will feel a sense of vitality coming to you in a more accessible way, when you see that as you are brave enough to express the desires of your heart and pursue those desires, be sort of with this Capricorn full moon energy, it's almost as if it illuminates that it isn't about immediate gratification, but long-term gratification. It's almost as if the gratification is being doled out into pieces versus one big chunk. And as you are willing to pursue your own sense of creation and your own sense of self-expression, that is being of service to other people. And that will actually calm down any sort of anxiety or stress or nervousness or feeling draggy or not feeling as if you have enough energy to move the story forward. Venus being in your 1st house can rule many things. She can rule money and she can rule luxury and food. But here I think we're talking about our self-esteem. I think this Capricorn full moon is trying to put to rest some of the fears that we have of rejection when we pursue our own endeavors. Oftentimes, when we think about our own happiness, we inadvertently and unconsciously consider how other people will respond to our choices. And those choices, if we feel they will not respond favorably, sometimes we will diminish our own happiness to stay connected. So I think that's important. All right, Virgo. This full moon is in your 5th house of play, of creativity, of romance. This is a beautiful energy because I believe that, you know, Virgo and Capricorn are complementary by nature. They trine each other. So this is going to be trining your 1st house. And I think I'm coming more to the balance of work play. And I think that when I think about this full moon for my Virgos, sometimes you guys think that work is play because you enjoy process, you enjoy analyzing things, you enjoy the cerebral processes. And yet at the same time, maybe what we're talking about here, because the moon is involved here, is that you may think work is play, but do the people you love think work is play? And maybe this is more about interacting with them wholeheartedly, being completely present versus sort of having yourself in one foot in work and one foot in play. There's very much a feeling of some sort of even exchange of energy between where you are of service, because naturally you're used to working, you're used to being of service. And then how are you letting go of work and really staying in the moment of pleasure, in the moment of, you know, this could be watching a movie, it could be playing a board game. It doesn't have to be anything huge. It just feels very much like this full moon is saying disconnect from your obligations and reconnect to the things that you find entertaining, the things that feel sometimes frivolous. You know, what did you do all day? Oh, I sat and played the crossword puzzle. Well, you didn't do much today. That's kind of how the normal human would respond. And yet, I think it's a very important time to give the mental processes a break. Okay, Libra. This Capricorn full moon will be in your 4th house of home and family, and you could very much have a moment where you are having revelations, having epiphanies, having thoughts that are reconciling how your family experience as a child supported you, nurtured you, or the opposite. Libra is such a cooperative sign. It's a partnership sign. Libra does not like to really confront or argue. And so sometimes they'll diminish themselves in order to be a cooperative component. We will often do that within our families. So I think what's going on here is this opportunity for the sun at 11 degrees at Cancer, making this beautiful aspect sextile to Jupiter, and then the trine to Saturn in Pisces, to give you an opportunity to really reflect on being fair to not only others, but to yourself. And let me kind of offer it this way. Because Libra doesn't like to confront, sometimes they feel a sense, even when the phone rings, the phone is rang, I see who it is, and I must pick it up. And you know that it's bringing a sense of anxiety to you to pick up that phone, and yet you do it anyway because you know what's expected of you, Capricorn. Don't pick up the phone. Wait till you feel a sense of really wanting to have that conversation or not feeling that sense of obligation. There's something about the idea that the 4th house sits at the very bottom of your particular natal chart. So the family dynamic here is very Capricorn. It can feel very obligated, very dutiful. It can even feel as if it wasn't very loving to you. And yet you may feel as if you must purport loving energies to those people by being available to them whenever they need you. And I think this is just about healthy boundaries so that you don't have to reject your experience as a child or how your home life influenced you, but rather put it into a place of illumination where you see how sometimes the dark spots make the color pop. And without that dark spot, the situation would not be as vibrant or as illuminating as it could be. So important to know. And also it feels very, very liberating for some reason. Scorpio, This is in your third house of communications and groups. And for my Scorpio risings, Scorpio is such an intense sign. And I say that because it's not necessarily how you show up, it's what you know. You have this intuitive knowing of the deep psychological imprint of other people. And you may not even be cognizant of it, because here we're talking about things that sit underneath the surface, and this full moon is bringing an illumination to that. And I think this can potentially help you to be a better or more effective or more engaging communicator with your groups. I feel as if the third house naturally is ruled by Gemini. The Mercury is conjunct the sun in this dance of this full moon. And so you may become aware that in what you know, in what you see beneath the surface, and I want to offer it this way. I feel like a little compassion here, a little dose of the Cancerian energy here could make this experience much more transformational for you in a way that feels as if it's serving moving your story forward versus maybe feeling like it's moving you away. Our third house is the busiest house of the zodiac. It's where we're running our everyday errands and going to work. We're traveling short distances. We're watching the news. We're going to school. We're reading. We're teaching. We're writing. We're communicating with our emails. So I feel like there could be a little bit something in how you've been communicating that might be a little bit dry, Capricorn, a little bit feeling a little, this is how it's done and this is how we're going to do it. Capricorn, in its challenging energy, doesn't really have an emotional input here. It's all about how we build the structure. And if part A goes into part B, don't try to put part C into part A. That's what Capricorn's going to kind of hold your feet to the fire. So here, I think this is where Scorpio can start to identify that when you're using your charm and using your, I think of Scorpio is very engaging and inspiring when you want to be. I feel like you are sexy, Rexy, and you could talk me into doing things I don't want to do because you're so cool and so engaging. So here, I think this is about being able to use some of that wonderful enrolling energy versus just sort of kind of communicating to get the job done. They say Scorpio can be a little stingy, right? So I guess this is kind of where I'm getting at, is that you could have an awareness that your communications have been in such that we're not as enrolling as they could have been, not as inviting as they could have been. And when you add a little bit of honey to the mix, you'll find you'll get more flies than you do with vinegar. So that's just what I'm going to go there. Sagittarius, this is in your second house of money. This is the house of the builder, Taurus, the farmer, the sustainable farmer, the one who is willing to truly plant those seeds and nurture those seeds and watch them grow. Sagittarius is I kind of tease, like, I think Sagittarius is one of the most easygoing signs of the zodiac. They're the easiest to accept and to be curious and to be interested in things that are different from them, things that are foreign, things that feel like they expand them. So I feel as if with this full moon in the sign of building, the second house is a builder house, you may actually take a business venture or something to do with how you make your resources and your money and capitalize on that. It's almost as if this full moon could bring in the culmination of one stage of development before we start the next stage of development. And off the top of my head, I cannot think of where Leo is. Let me back up a little bit. So, because I'm thinking that Venus, who naturally rules the second house, can bring in more prosperity and money. And yet it's not because of the first phase, it's going into the second phase of whatever you're creating, where you're using your talents and your skills. And some of those talents may be your diplomacy. and I know we normally attach that to Libra, but I can't help but think that Sagittarius, being a world traveler, is also going to have a sense of diplomacy, as Sagittarius encounters so many different types of people and beliefs. So I think this is going to be an important energy for you, because it's going to take you into a place where you're starting to feel the possibilities are closer than they've been. Maybe what I'm feeling is you're going from the conceptual stage to the actual building stage of a dream, or of using your skills and your talents in a way that you haven't before. And it's going to help bring financial security into your situation, into your life. Capricorn, this is in your first house. And boy, you know, Capricorn, if you have not gone through the most beautiful journey of transformation, we know Pluto has retrograde back into your first house in those last few degrees of mastering the build. And when I say mastering the build, I say it because you're getting an opportunity to really establish to yourself the kind of authority that you want to be for yourself. And I think this full moon is part of that process, where you, I believe, Capricorn, have been becoming more and more emotive in a way that makes you aware that your happiness is important, that your sense of feeling viable and a sense of that Saturnian reward over time really starts to come into play now. So I think that this is going to be a culmination of your fears in many ways, the transformation of your fears, and seeing them, rather than trying to exterminate your fears, you're going to see where they're illuminating a possibility for you, that there is excitement down that lane, there is achievement down that lane, there is viability in what you're searching to build for yourself. And I think this is going to be really powerful, because we think about the moon is in your first house, that means the sun is in your seventh house, which could bring to you a sense of partnership, a sense of support, a sense of feeling nurtured by those around you for what you're endeavoring. And they could be team members, because we've got Mercury there, and Mercury rules groups and small groups of people. It could be your children as well, or siblings, but whoever those people that Mercury is representing, they feel as if they are bringing also a sense of curiosity and excitement about what it is you're endeavoring. And so when you stay in the lane of the evolved version of yourself, and rather than villainizing any previous depression you may have been feeling, or previous trepidation, or even a lack of movement, because sometimes we can get so nervous that we're afraid to move forward. That's just a piece of information. That's just one step in a long journey. And as you take those steps with a sense of awareness of being present in the moment, you're starting to feel the excitement and the viability of the life you've dreamt of versus maybe the life you've actually been living. So I think this is very exciting for you. Aquarius, Capricorn is your 12th house. There's going to be an illumination of what has been hidden. And I say that because the 12th house is the house behind us, the house we don't see easily. It's also a house that's naturally ruled by Pisces, which can rule deception, confusion, lack of clarity. It can even represent sometimes wanting to escape. Now, having Capricorn as your 12th house would make me feel that there's potentially hidden fears, hidden obligations, feelings that you may not feel necessarily like your uniqueness has been celebrated. There's an ancestral energy to the 12th house. There's an ancestral energy to the Capricorn energy. So this is an opportunity to truly clear a pattern of belief, a pattern of activity, a pattern of thought, a pattern of obligation, and an opportunity for you to embrace your difference, embrace your uniqueness, embrace this idea that you are the sign of the Zodiac that frees us from enslavement and the chains that hold us down. Again, I can't help but but emphasize that Aquarius rules our hopes and our dreams. It is that Upachaya house that rewards over time, and time is really not about necessarily working hard, but actually staying the course. When everything gets murky and when the tide comes up and I feel like I'm going to get washed away, am I going to just surrender to, or am I going to get back up and continue the journey? And I think that's what's happening here. I think you're going to find yourself rewriting some of your beliefs in a way that serve you, to be more of the pioneer that you are, more of the space explorer that you are, because the space you're exploring really isn't out there, but is in here. All right. And finally, we have our Pisces. This Capricorn full moon is in your 11th house of hopes and dreams, and having Saturn moving into your first house, Saturn that's making a trine to the sun in Cancer. And I think this is important because there is a sense of, with this full moon, Pisces, you may feel layers of you may find there are certain people within your networks, your social networks, the people that you're working with, that you're not in alignment anymore, that maybe at one point you were, but maybe now your philosophies, your ideas are shifting. Saturn has come into your first house to bring sustainability in your sense of self, to celebrate what you can build with your imagination, with your fantasy life. And fantasy sometimes is being overly invested in somebody else. And I think, saying this very lovingly to my Pisces, if you've been overly invested in someone else being part of what you're creating, you may find that you were looking at that person and holding yourself kind of small in this situation, that you were giving more emphasis to them and the partnership than you were your own contribution within the partnership, within the collaboration, within the network. And you may find some of those networks you no longer want to participate in, or you want to take a back seat in because you want to do something more individualistic, something that represents who and what you are versus maybe who and what you would be within a group of other people. This idea of hopes and dreams it's not the dreams that we have in sleep time. It's the dreams that we have for what can be. And I think for my Pisces, Saturn has come into your first house to tell you what you want can absolutely be. It can exist. It can materialize. But part of it is you being willing to remove whatever illusions are holding you back from your own power within the situation, with your own ability to build, to get out your toolbox and your hammer and your nails, and know that when you start to build, that you will intuitively know how to make those hopes and dreams come true. So I think that this is going to be a very powerful month going into July. As we'll see many shifts in the energy between the nodes. We have some planets going backwards. Venus will go retrograde. Chiron will go retrograde. Neptune is going retrograde in 2 days. Today's June 28th. So there's going to be a lot of review, reflection, reevaluation. And sometimes we're even going to be reordering some of the same things from the universe that we wanted before, but it's going to be a 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 version of it. All right. Well, that's it for me for today for the full moon. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, please subscribe, please share, and hit that notification bell. And I'll be back soon with another installment of the stars and what they have to offer us. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the full moon and be safe on the 4th of July weekend, even though it's during the week.